In this demo, I'm going to add a feature to this application. I'm going to use some hypervelocity techniques. So I've got a pretty robust planning system as well as a knowledge graph system to help track the changes that I make, as well as provide information about the project. So that way the LLM doesn't have to go and search the whole project every time to figure out what's going on. I'll explain that as I go along, but what I'm going to do is essentially I've got this application that I've got. It's a sample application. It's a Flutter app. Runs across platform. Here it is running on Linux. But essentially what I can do is I can search for different conversions and it will show them in this list. So here's two. If I just do one conversion, then it will show just the actual one to, so 10 nautical miles to kilometers is 18.52 kilometers. But if I leave that off, I can see that I can see all of the conversions, but it looks pretty crap. Let's just say that. So what I've got here is I've got a Figma design that I've worked on. As you can see, I'm some kind of design genius, but what I want to do is take this design and make the other one, that's my app, look like this. So, I mean, there are Figma MCP plugins, but I'm just going to try this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to stop that up. I'm going to say, the conversions results look pretty terrible. Can we make it look more like this? The large black area on the left is static, and you can see it. In this example, I have searched for NNM. Contains the unit that it found I'm looking for, and also shows its display name. Then to the right of that is the vertically stacked list of possible conversions. Let's just go from here. So what I've got is I've got an MCP server running that's got access to a graph database that has all the information about this project. It doesn't always use it in architecture mode, it does sometimes, but what it's doing is it's actually going through at the moment and producing a plan. So I'm using Roo Code with Claude Thinking at the moment. When I'm actually doing the coding, I'll probably use OpenAI 4.1. But what this approach does is I'm just using the default Roo Code architecture mode. But what I've done is I've got this Klein rules file, and basically what it's going to do is going to create a plan. It's going to organize it into phases. It's going to break down the phases into 1.1, 1.2, etc. Because what we want to be able to do is make sure that we can run each phase separately, because we don't want our context windows getting too big. Like if we've got a big plan that we need to run, we don't want to have to do it all at once in one big thing, or if we get interrupted or go home for the day or whatever, we want to be able to continue it the next day. We also want to be able to do a little bit, get the tests working. Maybe we do a commit in our branch. We also have the ability to track the work that's doing. So, for example, it checks it off as it goes along. We want to. This is not only for us, so then we can follow what's going on, but we're also able to. It can track itself, and so then you can actually resume it again later. It's asked me a question. Let's just have a look here at what we've got. I'm just going to tidy this up a bit. Okay. Does it mean you want to group all conversions by input unit showing one unified result card per unique input unit? We should maintain any notes. Okay. No. It will show. Okay, no, that's not quite right. The black box shows what was recognized in the search query. For example, if I search and recognize NNM as the unit, the right side should show possible conversions for that unit. So I don't want to keep the current card system. I don't want current card system. I want one card that then has a vertical list of the possible conversions for that unit if multiple are returned. Keeping in mind, if I type sometimes for mobile and runs on tablet, desktop, mobile, etc. It targets mainly What do we target? E-paper. Okay, let's see how that goes. All right, so back onto this. We are each planning task should have a clear success criteria plan. Blah 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 blah. But also, we also have so that's when writing the plan. But when following, we should follow the plan and check them off. We should update the plan and mark it as complete. Tasks that involve testing should not be marked complete until the test passed. So I found that it actually says, right, you're done, but it didn't actually write or run tests. So I'm trying to get it to do the tests earlier on in the stage. So that's that one. There's also a big section down below on the memory graph. So we've got this graph MCP server, very simple knowledge graph that can take entities, edges, and then search on that. It's based on a library. Oops, we're doing an edit. Creating the plan. We'll go through that in a minute. It's based on a library found online. I just forked it and then refactored a little bit to run it in Docker and added dev container and stuff, but I'll show that. It's this MCP knowledge graph repo that's, it's knowledge graph improved. It's on GitHub. Essentially, it just runs in Docker, and then I access it in my project using MCP file here, just Docker run it. Passes a link into the memory path. I've got the JSON file here that contains all my entities. It's created all of these, like just as part of it, it's working away. I had it go and do a bit of work in planning mode to go and set this up with stuff that it's discovered about the project already, like how log filtering works, what our architecture is, like we're using dependency injection and how tests work and all that sort of stuff. But essentially what it does is at the start of every task, it should search memory and then basically use that memory. It should update the memory. It should delete what have I done? Oops, it didn't. I didn't double click it. Okay, so it should update it and make sure that it doesn't leave things outdated. If it finds things that were plain wrong, it should remove them and stuff like that. So there's some pretty cool stuff in there around that. I'll link this as well. This client rules file. So there's memory stuff. It's all the type of entities it should create and blah 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 blah. So it's actually Roo wants to create go to code mode. I'm not going to let it at the moment because you can't edit anything except for markdown files in this mode. So I can't. If I step away, it's not going to go and change my whole code base without me knowing about it. Back onto the rules file for the minute. What it's going to do is, what I've found is when after a while, after the code base gets on a bit, it'll go and undo things that I've sort of specifically asked it to do earlier on as part of a plan. Like, for example, we've made an architectural decision about something, and I catch it in the act. And so what I'm trying to do here is basically, I've got this structure where it's got a plan, it's got files. So each file is also an entity in the system that it will create, and then it links the files to the plans through change sets. So each file can have multiple change sets, so it can be linked to many plans, but each plan can link to many files, but each file will only be represented once in the system. But the file can have many plan connections, so each plan, the file might have multiple changes. And what it does is it essentially explains what we're thinking at the time. So that way, when I'm about to edit a file, it should look up and go, hey, here's what we're thinking at the time. I shouldn't probably remove this section because it relates to this thinking. It's not perfect, but it does guide it and sort of ground it in some ways to previous thinking, and that's what this is about. This is my first crack at this. It kind of works. I'll improve this over time, but you can see the concept. Also, we don't want to track everything. We only want to track sort of stuff, major stuff. Anyway, let's go and review our plan here. So I can see what the plan is. We've got this UI comparison. Oh, we've got a markdown. We've got a couple of mermaid diagrams. Okay, so the current design we have here is, let me just make this a bit bigger. Okay, so the current design we have here is, and I'll just get rid of that. Oops, get rid of that. All right, we've got a single card. The left side, wait a minute, that's the new design. Current design, no. Okay, so we've got each card shows the, at the moment, we have a card per conversion result. So if I type 10 nautical miles and it can convert to meters, feet, whatever else, then it will show different cards with each thing. The new design is we've got a single card, but the black box with 10 nautical miles we saw in the design here, my amazing Figma design. And then across here, conversions list, it's got like this vertically stacked list, even though here it's not vertically stacked. I'm sure it'll get it right. If it doesn't, then we can whack it into shape later. It's created this conversion result widget. Okay, that's what it's going to call it. Sort of seems a bit leaky in the name there. I'm going to just change it to that. I don't want it to be modern conversion result widget. I just want it to be. It's cool in here is you can just in the previews. I don't know if you know, you can just double click it and it takes you back to the code. It's even got a visual mock-up here. That's pretty sweet, pretty clever. I didn't ask it to do that. That's just Claude thinking with the prompting that Roo does. So I guess I like that. It's certainly representative of what it's going to look like. Yeah, on smaller screens it's going to stack. Nice, it knew about that. Nice, that's pretty clever. All right, so that's cool. What's the next change we've got? Implementation details. All right, so let's preview this one. All right, so I'm going to ask it to not be that. So I want it just to be that. No other changes in the file I can see there. Okay, let's go back here. Conversion widget will be structured as follows. Okay, so it's got input, because this is the same widget thing. So this is basically mapping back to our, to the way that our Riverpod injection works in this Flutter app. You can see the input values and everything are going to come through. They're going to be fed in via data binding, essentially. What have we got here? Some UI stuff. I'm not going to try and parse that. I'll get to see it in action. The left section widget. I'm going to assume that looks good too. I can't really visualize that. I don't know enough about Dart and Flutter to know what that's going to look like. Again, this is all very UI-ish. Let's just check the... Oh no, it's doing meter query to see if it's less than 360 wide. Okay. Okay, it's going to implement UI tests. Okay, yeah, so when it's 100 hectopascals, the black box should handle that. Okay, let's see how it goes, because I wonder if it'll do resizing or something like that. Cool, it even sort of having a bit of a guess with that. Implementation steps. Create the new that. Okay, so they're all there. Okay, so here's the main plan. This is the main plan. This is sort of like this will have the tasks and phases in it. You can see there's got checkbox here and it's got phases and everything. So what I want it to do is I want it to actually ensure that each task phase has task/phase has its own checkbox, so we can work on each. Now let's just update that. We'll just get it to do that and we'll continue reading while we're doing it. So from the top, plan outlines the approach for redesigning. Okay, cool. That's sort of what we expected. Here's what it currently has. No good. Doesn't group doesn't get conversions in a visual cohesive way. Doesn't highlight the recognized unit prominently as desired. Let's just go back in here. This should update as it's going. Yeah, you can see it getting edited. It's pretty sweet. So each one will get... Wait, where's my checkboxes? It's going to do it down the bottom, isn't it? Ah, here we go. All right, that'll do. Implementation plan. So we're going to create the new conversion result widget. We're going to... I hate the way Roo and Copilot steal your... they steal your focus, so you can't edit on something else while they're editing. Whereas I found in Cursor, it actually edits in its own little side window there, and it works a lot better. So anyway, I have found though that Copilot and Roo Code can edit files at the same time. They don't sort of step on each other, which is pretty cool. So you can work on two things that way if you want to. It's explaining the widget, explaining the styling, modify the widget. Yeah, it's updating the... I keep double clicking. Yeah, so the unified results display is the way that stuff's fed in. Update the data handling. I don't know if there's much to really do there except for the display name getting passed in properly to the main unit. I think there's just a bit of a restructuring on what goes into the thing outside the list. I'm going to do responsive testing, I'm going to do edge case testing, and then there's some success criteria. Why can't I see my... Oh, I'm in the wrong thing again. Yeah, okay. It didn't show up properly. There's the phases. I think I switched plans accidentally somehow. Cool. All right. How big's our context window? So it's a 55K already. It's getting a bit big. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start a new thing because I don't want it to have this massive context window from all the planning when it starts the task. I'm going to run each task and try and keep that context window small because it behaves more. But what I am going to do is I'm going to use GPT 4.1, which is this OpenAI setting here. I also have access to 4.1 Mini and Nano. Mini doesn't follow my plans very well. I've got Gemini, which is awesome. Claude's awesome. They're just, I mix them up a bit depending on what's behaving best for a particular job. Sometimes I'll just undo everything and to start again. All right, so we've got this memory. The memory's been updated too with something. It's up to, okay, it's actually added a breadcrumb that says what was updated. We might have a bit of a look into that in more detail later. What I'll do is I'll create a branch named after the plan. What are we calling it? The conversion results UI redesign. Let's create a branch called that. We'll call it that. Okay, cool. And then what I'm going to do is actually commit what we've got so far. So that way if I don't like what I'm seeing, I can undo it. So let's get that branch up and into our thing. All right. Go into code mode. And let's kick it off. Implement. It will know what I'm talking about because I've got open tabs. I'm going to close this though. I don't want that to go up in the context. It'll actually send these up in context. It'll send up X number of things, and we don't need cron rules in there either. All right, so let's see how we go. Take it away. Oops, it's gone to Claude. OpenAI. I'm just going to start that again because I switched modes. It was in architecture, so architect should be in Claude, but when I switch to code, it will go to OpenAI. Okay. Implement this plan, please. Let's try that. OpenAI 4.1 just came out yesterday at the time of this video. It's been a bit interesting. So it's found that the plan is not yet tracked in memory. So it's sort of thinking, hey, I need to actually get this plan going. Like it's not... I've not really tried this before, so we'll see how we go. It's been unable to update it. It seems to be using invalid JSON. We'll see how we go. I think it got cut off. Anyway, so what was I talking about? I hope that it doesn't try and... I hope that it still updates the checklists in here, like the phases. What we should do is as it's going along, like phase 1, redesign that. Phase 2, implement widget layout and styling. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is GPT just came out yesterday and it's a bit slow. Like it seems to have a slow first time to first token. Response goes up and down a fair bit. Sometimes really quick, but other times I'm seeing delays of up to sort of 10 seconds. It could be longer. Yeah, see, that one took nearly 20 seconds, I reckon. GPT 4.1 is using its cache effectively in Roo Code, it seems to. Like you can see that these requests are costing me less than a cent at the moment. Not that I've actually checked the billing page to see what I've spent, but I'm assuming it's accurate. I probably should do that one day. In GPT's in their console, in their API, but in the billing, you don't prepay, you sort of pay as you go. I think you can set a limit though. Whereas with Claude, you prepay, which I actually prefer because I run out and then I'm like, I can decide if I want to spend more this month or whatever, or whether I want to try and use a different model. Certainly prevents runaway, which I like. Now that these models are getting really large context windows, like if you're coding at 100K plus context window, you're spending, you can, at $8 per million sort of on GPT, you can really spend a lot. Like that's $8 per million response tokens, not input tokens, but I've noticed that you can get up in the multi-dollar range for an edit of a file. You sort of start considering whether or not you should be working in these long context changes start getting more expensive because it's got the information about stuff that it did earlier when it actually really doesn't need it at all. So, you know, being smart about when you reset the context, start a new chat, and if you've got your plans written well with the multiple phases in them, you can just say, hey, continue this in the next phase. What I didn't do when I started this phase was say, hey, let's just work on phase 1. I'm going to do it now, actually. I meant to say we want to just work and focus on phase 1, please. So let's just make sure we're doing that. It'll say, yep, we'll do that, but also you interrupted me. I'm going to continue what I was doing, hopefully. One thing that I've noticed is 4.1 doesn't. Claude will often go, all right, if you interrupt it, it'll go, all right, thanks for that, and then continuing on what it's doing. If I say, in OpenAI, if I say, actually, can you just do this quick thing and then we'll get back, and it won't say, okay, I won't get back into it. It'll actually go, yep, I'm finished now. So, and then you be like, oh, can you please continue on with the thing that you were doing before? And it goes, oh, yep, no worries. Whereas Claude will sort of just do that, or Claude seems to have more self-drive to get the job done rather than just focusing on the last instruction. Although OpenAI is very good at following instructions, like for example in the Claude rules file, it's certainly been following them pretty accurately. Anyway, we'll see how we go. You can see it's just added the plan and it's adding file changes now. It's actually tracking all the changes that it's making and what the thinking is at the time. This can be handy even just in our future phases, even if we never come back and touch these files again. It can be handy for context on their future changes of what we've been working on. This is interesting. It knows what we're doing for e-reader. Avoid subtle grays, 100%. The this app, it's just a bit of a toy app, but it actually works. Like it actually runs on desktop, and I've got this little Android e-paper display thing. It's called a Books Go 6, a couple $100. Runs full Android, but it's got an e-paper display. It's just black and white. It's a good challenge because I've never used Flutter or Dart before. Dart's very similar to C# though. All right, so it's saying that it's updating the plan. Let's see it make the changes, eh? Cool. We've got some checkpoints checked off. Context window is looking pretty good at 24.7K. We might move on to phase 2. So it's got the new widget, but I think it's still using the old widget. Let me see. Okay, it's still got to do that. The unifolder results display, what that is this system can display either, I'll show you. So you can display either conversion, so it can either display conversion, or it can do 10C to 10F or Kelvin, but it can also do airports. So you can see here it's actually shown an airport. This is a different type, so yeah, it can do both of those types. That's why it's called unifolder. So it's display and hasn't updated that yet. We're at 25.2K on the context window. It's actually quite acceptable for this kind of task. What I'm going to do, so it's implemented blah, 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 blah. I'm going to take a checkpoint. I'm going to call this Okay, I'm going to sync that. All right, let's move on to phase 2. I'm going to say next phase and see what it does. I do love LLMs. You can talk to them like a person. I find this process is really like, you might notice I didn't really check the work that it did just then. I probably should do that. The problem is that what it's done so far is a lot of UI work. I'm confident that the back end works. I've got that well tested and everything like that. But I can't really see what this is doing. Not in here anyway. Interesting over here, it's tried to send up a big single request of more than 30,000 tokens, so it's going to actually die there. So I'm going to switch to Claude. My OpenAI is not allowing me to send more than 30k tokens per minute. So I'm not quite sure how I'm meant to do big token. It says it can do 1 million, right? But I don't think it can. Not for me anyway. It's throttling me and I don't know how to up it. Not that I really checked, but Claude doesn't have this problem. It just lets me keep going up to the 200k context window. Claude thinking the context window is a lot less. Seems, I'm noticing that roughly about 80k or something. It seems to think it's more like 100 or 120, but I never see it hit that. Okay, phase 2 complete. Modify. All right, so it should be. I wonder if we're able to see the changes now. Whoa! Kind of. Try 10 HBA. Wow, that works, but we're not seeing the, we're seeing, I'm going to throw it. Okay. We're seeing the black area, but not seeing the, so in the implementation details, in one of them, somewhere, we had that drawing, do you remember? I wonder what file that was in. Then, yeah, okay. The visual mock-up. Okay, let's see how we go just fixing that up. We'll see what it says. It might not have even done it yet or something. Though the phase tracking suggests that it will have. Oh, it might be they're invisible. See, this is a good, as it's editing, we actually might be able to see the changes happen in here. You do have to press R sometimes to do hot reload, but hot reload, whoa. Damn. Yeah, it's pretty ugly, but I mean, it kind of worked, right? Tried to run the app in Chrome. It also, that's right, it doesn't just run in desktop and that. Oh, no, that's all right. Cool. It's tried to run it in Chrome, so it's actually pretty interesting. Because I've got Chrome installed in this dev container, and you can run it in Chrome. So I was trying to run it with a web server. I don't want to do that. I think I can probably just do Flutter. Yeah, Flutter, not Flitter. Target file Chrome, not found. Actually, what I can do is I can go in here and I can say I want to run it in Chrome, and then just press F5 and the debugger will do it for me. Let's go. So yeah, you can install Chrome in WSL in dev containers. It just works. It's pretty cool. But Flutter can run also in Chrome in any web browser. And it's not like Electron or anything. It actually really does work in it. So here it is running in Chrome. And you can see here it just looks like a web page. So NM. Not bad. I mean, it's not quite. I think that's pretty cool. I'll tidy it up a bit. I might make it so then the black box extends down the height of the list. That might make it look a little bit cool. Can you please make the black box extend the height of the list of the conversion results. So it acts like a kind of left bar for them. It needs minimum. All right, let's just do that. That's pretty cool. I'm going to go back into make run here. Hey, on the edit yet. It hasn't done any testing or anything yet either, but might skip that for this demo. Okay, so now it's going to work. Let's see what we've got. 10 nm. Cool. 2 km. Sweet. I think that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that outcome. That'll do us. I noticed that the that's meant to be below it, I think, in our design. Yeah, I'm not too fussed about that. I think that probably looks all right, you know. I don't want to noodle on it too much. I'm not exactly a designer. Just before I go on to showing it running on the device, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the benefit of the knowledge graph stuff. So I didn't really show exactly what it can do. Now that we've done this update, I've got this file open, modern conversion result widget. I can just do a quick search now, and hopefully it will go through and find all of the relations to this file, and you'll see that the memories come back with the conversion results UI redesign plan. And then I can just go, why did it modify it? So it should be able to then go and use that little thread of information to figure out, you know, what the plan was trying to do, why this file was modified, and all that sort of stuff. I'm very much looking forward to this time to first token to be fixed up. Cool. So let's run our query again. Okay, so it's got the initial implementation, responsive e-paper optimized, fix modern text colors and layout, extend black box to full height. So that was all the stuff that we did. There was sort of like some of the things that I did and asked to put in there. So that's pretty cool. Another little thing that we can do is I can go into, say, ask mode here, and I can say, actually, what I might do is I might stay in code mode, so I'm going to get it to do a change, is how does log filtering work in this project? Like, for example, I might be looking at my logs and I might be thinking, you know, so let's see if we've got, there's a lot on log filtering in there. I'm just going to clear this. Okay, so we've got some information, debugger info, blah, 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 blah. Geez, it's a lot of information. And there's a table. It's not rendering markdown in here, it seems. Maybe it is a little bit. Unit test is set to none, so that's interesting. So let's just say I'm running my unit test. I'm going to go just test, and can see here when it runs, there's it's running the unit tests on this project. There's an error. Maybe I should fix that at some point. But that'll be related to actually some of the changes that we just did that I've not yet committed. But what I can do is I might be like, can you please change the log level in unit tests to info? So it will be able to use the memory to sort of figure out the testing system and what the log levels are and how they work and everything without having to search the code. It would eventually figure it out, right? It's pretty smart. But because it's left little breadcrumb trails to itself in the past, it can just get to the information a lot cheaper and faster. So it's not going to sort of I was going to say, it's not going to need to spend as much time and tokens to get to the result. Plus, you can also, if you're sort of seeing repeating patterns where it's like, every time I ask it to do this thing, it takes forever, it has to go and scan all these files. You can just say, now that you've discovered all of that, can you please write updates into the memory on how you did that, so then you can shortcut it next time, and then it'll just figure it out. So it's so the memory's showing that. Like, you can imagine this would be so much quicker if 4.1 was sort of behaving at the moment. Like, it would do this within seconds. Most of the delay is just waiting for the API to respond. So let's just wait here. There we go. It's done the change. Just done the diff. All right. So let's go just test now, and we should start seeing. Oh, depending on, I might not even have any info logs coming out in the code. I did tidy it up a lot. Anyway, point being is that you can do that, and it makes it much nicer to sort of work with. Okay, just before we sign off, what I'll do is I'll just demonstrate. I'll come back to this task now. I sort of had got a bit sidetracked. We did the demo and of the knowledge graph and everything like that. I want to just show a little bit how you can resume your task list later. So what I've got here is let's continue this plan, use memory to see what we've been working on so far. So I'm sort of like giving a little hint. I want it to go and have a look at what's been going on. But you can see not only has it got access to the detailed plan, but now it can really see what's been going on. Can review the current state of the plan. It can just sort of maybe synchronize those two. If anything's out of whack, it'll probably notice. And then it can continue. So we've got to get some unit testing in. As we can see, some of our tests were failing from before, so we've got to fix those up. Normally I'd actually probably have it write the tests beforehand and make sure that each phase the testings are completed, but anyway. So we'll just wait for it to start writing the tests, and then that'll do for today. We don't need to see it all working. We sort of get the idea, I think. Memory shows strong testing practices and patterns in place. Unit, widget integration test, use of Mocktail, Riverpod, test containers, test logging best practices, but there's no explicit memory entity for tests specifically covering modern conversion result widget or unified test display. Interesting, because that's true. Tests exist but not tracked in memory, or they've not yet been created, and then it's gone just double checked the file system. File likely contain tests for the unified results display. All right, so that means that the unified results display stuff was created before we started using memory, and only just started using memory very recently. So before that, I was tracking them in. I was doing a previous breadcrumb technique where it would actually save the breadcrumbs in files, but it didn't have the graph relationships back necessarily to the plans. It did sort of list the plan name and everything, but it was pretty hard to search. It wasn't really readily available as any kind of entity graph with relationships and such. So what I'm hoping it will do is it's going to go and do all of this research and find all this stuff that's missing in the graph and actually add it. So that way it's been instructed that if it does do some work to figure something out, it should then update the graph, so then next time we don't have to do that same work again. This is interesting here. One of my commands in the line rules file, in the rules file that the bot's using, is to only test the test, to only run the test that you're currently working on rather than trying to run them all. And it's just followed that rule, which I think is really, really good. I noticed that when I was using other models like 4.0 or even Claude, it wouldn't always follow that rule. It would just run all the unit tests again, which unfortunately creates a lot of output that fills up the bot's context window very quickly. Right, all tests are passing. What we need to do is make sure that it does tidy them up. There's a bit of a few prints in there, but I might just quickly run it up just to have a peek at it. This is interesting. Roo sometimes does that. I'll show you what that is in a minute. I just want to just check that. Cool. Meters and minutes. I didn't know it was going to do that. I probably would make those the same width, fixed width on those. But yeah, I mean, that looks pretty cool. I like that. Did not know we had that functionality. This is an interesting thing in AI, isn't it? That, it was able to show two different types. So I like that. So what we went through is we started off with a pretty simple design there in Figma that I knocked up in about 10 minutes. It was pretty basic. Not exactly. I think I've been using Figma for about literally 10 minutes. Then we just pasted it into the bot and had it go and build a plan. And then we ran the plan in phases. Then we reviewed how it's updated the memory, and then it's actually been using the memory since as we've done the test implementation. We saw it running on device. We saw it running on multiple different platforms here on the desktop. And then we've finished off with getting the unit tests up and running and passing. During the PR review, I would go through and make sure those tests are actually valuable and they're doing what they should be. We want to make sure that the system didn't just create some tests and then sort of cheat to get them working, or that they're not valuable tests in that, sure, they're passing and it looks great to have 590 tests, but are they really contributing to the quality of the system? So that's another thing that we review. All in all, though, I think, considering that I'm not a Flutter expert, I'm a very experienced software engineer, but I have very limited experience on this particular platform, and that's why I'm, trying to build an app with it, just because it's so different, and I have to focus on my capability or my improvements to my workflows by usage of plan design and knowledge stores. By using that plus AI tooling, I'm able to actually generate an application that works in a brand new platform that I've never worked with before. And so pull those things together, I think it's an interesting workflow that I'll continue to improve over time. Thank you very much for listening. If you got this far, thank you. And hopefully this has helped you out. Goodbye.